I've never really spent any time in Utah. I drove through a corner of it on the way to elk hunt in New Mexico.
Mhm.
Crazy, like geography and topography in Utah. Like, and I come from BC, so it takes a lot to impress me. But I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, man, what a wild state.
Yeah, I mean, I live at 5,700 feet, and I can drive 45 minutes to the south and be in St. George. And it'll be red rock, sandstone, everything, and it'll be 110 degrees all summer. And here, we might hit 100 for a week, but mostly it's like 80s and 90s. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, Utah's very diverse. I mean, you got everything from pinyon juniper to 13,000 peaks.
It reminds me of Arizona. We just got back from a family vacation in Arizona, and we were in Phoenix, and it was like, yeah, 100, 105. And then for
Mhm.
one day, we drove my daughter to the Grand Canyon, and you get out of the car in Flagstaff and you feel like you got to put a jacket on. And it was like, we
Yeah,
only drove 3 hours.
yeah, Flagstaff's great. I mean, you get all the ponderosa pine, and it's cool. Like
Yeah.
a ton of snow. Yeah, I love Flagstaff. Yeah, Arizona's like that too. It's Southwest is interesting. It's got a lot more topography, a lot more variability than people might think.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite place to hunt, and I think it's because it's so different from home. Like we
Hmm.
don't have anything like that here. Remember the first time I went coos deer hunting in Arizona, I was just like,
Yeah,
what? This is like I'm on the moon. Like it was crazy to me how different everything was, and everything's trying to kill me, and there's cactus everywhere, and it was just like it was wild, man.
yeah. Everything wants to stick to you. Everything wants to
Everything
jab you, and then the sunsets though are just incredible down there. I love that
wild.
country. The Kuzier hunting gets in your blood quick. I mean, yeah, I don't know how. I've talked to very, very few people that that go on a Kuzier hunt that just don't absolutely want to go back the next year, just
Yeah.
every year.
And it's just so hard. Like there's something
Hmm.
that's why everybody seems to run over to Mexico with the rifle in the rut. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's something special to be done with the bow. And like it's one of those hunts where I'm actually okay not getting anything. Cause I do feel like and that's rare for me to say, but it's like it's so hard and the point of it is just more being out there. I don't know. It's always felt like a different hunt to me in a couple of
Hmm.
ways like that.
Yeah, and it's a great time of year. I mean,
Yeah.
it's typically daytime highs in the 50s and 60s, and
Yeah.
you get cold nights, but those sunny afternoons are just awesome. It's beautiful country too. Yeah, I agree, man. They're cool little deer, and it's a rad time of year to be doing something different than like you're probably doing in BC or I'm doing in Cedar City. Sitting in the freezing cold.
Yeah. Well, it's perfect for me because January is like you're sitting in the middle of hell. And then
Yeah,
it's like literally a 3 hour flight and I'm, hunting coos deer with my buddies. And I'm just like, this is amazing.
yeah, yeah. I agree.
I've
Yeah,
gotten
fun
bit
hunt.
by the winter goat bug lately. And so that's kind of taken the place of my January coos hunt. And it's not
Hmm.
as enjoyable in any way, shape, or form. But it's a different animal too. Like
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I've only had one chance to hunt goats, so it took me 17 years to draw a permit here in Utah, and one chance, and that was pretty much it. I apply in other states, but the odds of drawing are just astronomical. So I don't know that I'll ever get a chance to actually hunt goat again. So it's a cool opportunity that you do.
We are very spoiled. Like
Mm.
there's a lot of things that I would change about wildlife management and in British Columbia, but it's also like just the sheer volume of over-the-counter tags I have access to, and just opportunity. And we don't have a whole, we're not known for record book animals, and we're not known for like Colorado level populations and opportunity, but there's nowhere else on the planet where you can just for $40 a tag go and hunt so many different creatures, like
Yeah,
we're very fortunate.
yeah. Are you born and raised BC? I mean,
I'm
is that
not,
kind
I'm a
of
transplant,
okay?
much like rest of the province. So I was originally born in Ontario, and then I
Hmm.
started tree planting in university and like slowly worked my way west. And then the first summer I spent in BC, I was like, I'm done, and
Hmm.
moved out here immediately afterwards. And except for 2 years that I lived in Australia, I've been in BC for almost exactly 20 years now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, when I was a kid in high school, my dad took me up. We went to Chilliwack. Is that right? Is that
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we went up there, and my dad was kind of kicking around the idea of buying like a kit plane, like a small two-seater kit
Yep.
plane, and putting it together. So we went up and visited a factory that
Yeah. They
essentially
build them out
sold.
there, right?
Yeah, sold kits. Yeah, so we went up there, we took a flight, checked out the factory, and he ultimately didn't. We ended up going through with it. He didn't get his license and didn't get the kit plane. But I remember, going up there. I think I was probably 12 or 13, and just seeing incredible country. And we flew out to the coast, and I mean, it was cool.
Yeah,
cool country.
So where did you grow up?
Mm-hmm. I grew up in southern Utah, so I still live here in southern Utah.
Okay.
Grew up in this little tiny town of about maybe 350, 500 people, just tiny.
Wow.
Yeah, just over the mountains. So I live here in Cedar City now, but I grew up in Antimony, which is maybe an hour from here, kind of to the east. Yeah, tiny little area.
And did you grow up in a hunting family?
Yeah, I did. My parents are originally from Indiana. My dad moved out here to Utah when he was in his early 20s with my mom, primarily because he wanted to experience the West and hunt the West. He grew up hunting mostly, coon dogs and raccoons and, just whitetail and stuff like that in Indiana. But he moved out West because he just loved the Rockies. So, yeah, I mean, from, your very young age, my dad was a state park manager, and there's a big reservoir across the street from the little house I grew up in. So we fished all summer long. We ice fished in the winter, deer hunted in the fall. It was just kind of like a family thing that we did. So yeah, we've kind of always hunted.
Was it something you knew early on was going to be like a significant, part of your life, or was it something you didn't really think that much about?
It didn't really come to me, kind of the importance that it would become in my life until later. So I grew up playing sports, and that was kind of like my main focus. I played baseball, I played basketball, and it's funny. Like I've got a 17-year-old now that's just, diehard basketball. It's all he wants to do is play basketball. I mean, he's in the gym all day, every day, just loves it. But I was kind of like that. I mean, I hunted every fall with my family, but it wasn't, it wasn't like this big deal, for me. I wasn't living and dying for it. At the time I was mostly playing sports. And then probably my early 20s, like the sports had kind of ended, and, I was going to college, and, that's like the thing that I missed the most was just like, the outdoors. I don't know why it came to me at that point, but it really set in heavy. And, my dad had always hunted. He would take 10 days every year. I remember he would take 10 days solo to himself. And that was like his time. Like he would take off 10 days and he bow hunted every year for 10 days. And, I remember that as a kid, and, I kind of got in, I started working for the Forest Service in my early 20s, and, in the summers between college, semesters. But, I just started to be outdoors more. I started to see animals. I had some buddies that were starting to bow hunt. And, at that point I thought, I'm going to kind of take this up. So it didn't really become like, the thing that it is in my life until probably like my late teens, my early 20s.
Okay. And so before you kind of got into the role that you have now, you originally went to school to be a wildlife biologist, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I originally wanted to be a dentist, I started college with, pursuing, biology degree with intent of going into dental school. And I don't know why, but I probably the money.
Probably a good financial decision.
Yeah. Financially, I thought that'd be a good move. But then, I started working for the Forest Service, and I loved being outdoors. I loved, just, being gone all the time and being out. And, so at that point I thought, maybe the thing I would like to do is pursue, wildlife biology. So I went to kind of change my major and got a degree in wildlife science. And I did that for a while. Right out of college, I took a job with an oil and gas company, and I was doing biological clearances for oil and gas, mostly seismics. I worked with a bunch of you crazy Canadians. You got a bunch of those guys. Yeah, a bunch of those guys that were doing seismic drilling were all from BC. So.
Yeah, that's huge here. I remember we used to tree plant, and I would work with the seismic guys, and it was like, I'm like, what? Wait a minute, you're doing what? And we're like falling these like 4-mile long straight lines, 4 feet wide, and then laying the whole thing with explosives, and then blowing shit up, and then taking readings on what happens under the ground to look for oil and gas. And it's funny now, and my background is in forestry. I was in the forestry space for 15 years. So I've spent my years in cut blocks, but you fly over, especially like the far north where there's not a whole lot of logging. And there's all these crazy weird straight lines kind of zigzagging everywhere. And you're like, what is this madness? Then it's like, those are seismic lines, man. But hard work too, man. Like, minus 30. Well, and that's, I guess minus 30, it matches up. So I can say minus 30 and everybody on this podcast will know what I'm talking about. But yeah, like cold ass winters. I remember talking to my buddies and they would like just leave the pickups running all night because if they shut them off, they wouldn't be able to start them again the next morning.
Yeah, hardy guys. Like these guys were doing like hella drilling, so they would have these rigs that they'd fly in a helicopter and they'd drop them down. And then these crews would like hike the lines and then meet up with a drill the hole and then load them with the charge. But I remember hiking down and kind of meeting those guys, and those guys would all be wearing like plastic boots, like the hardcore dudes smoking cigarettes and hiking their asses off. I was just unbelievable, those guys.
That's funny.
So yeah, kind of funny. But I did that for I think 3 years, and then I took a job with Game and Fish here in Utah, so the Utah Division of Wildlife, and I was a habitat biologist for I think about 7 years, and then ultimately like I love to hunt, right? Like I just developed this love of hunting, and it got real deep, and kind of a job opportunity. I was writing freelance, I guess, for GoHunt as they were getting started, kind of helping out with unit profiles and things like that. And I was kind of playing the game, looking at applying and, building points in the various Western states. And then just decided to kind of jump ship and go on with them full time so they could free up some more opportunities for me in the fall.
So one of the things that I've always related really strongly with you is your analytical approach to just about everything that you do. Is that something you got from your old man, or is that something you can trace back? Like, do you know where that comes from?
Yeah, it's probably from my dad. My dad's a thinker. Like he's kind of a loner like me. He's on his own a lot. He does a lot of thinking. He's a pretty soft-spoken guy, and then I would say very detail-oriented. Like he'll, he's kind of an amateur woodworker, so he's got a shop there in his house, and some of the stuff that he builds is just unbelievable. I mean, he's very detailed, very sharp, and very analytical. So I would say, yeah, it probably comes from my old man.
And do you think, because you've got that same thing that I also relate to really strongly, which is like this need for challenge, which you can see in the types of hunts that you go for and the way that you choose to hunt. Do you think that was a lot of people that I talked to seem to have a very strong sports background, and they got to a point in their life when like sports faded away? My one good hunting buddy, we used to play rugby for Team Canada, and he only recently found hunting in the last couple of years. But it seems to be that these guys that got that from sports that for whatever reason can't get it anymore kind of find it. Did you notice a similar transition for yourself? Like, is it like a new way to kind of satisfy whatever it was that needed to be filled?
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting because I played sports and I was competitive, but I remember like the last basketball game I played as a senior. I remember that game finishing and just being like overwhelmingly relieved with like, oh, it's over, like I'm done with that. Like that kind of the pressure and like I said, I grew up in a small town. So like, Sunday at a gas station or, Saturday night, you'd meet up with, anybody in town. That's all they wanted to talk about was, basketball and the games that week. And I got super sick. I got super sick of that, but, it was this relief. But then, looking back, I agree. Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, there was this kind of this void, like, I like the challenge, and that's probably, I would say that's the biggest draw to hunting for me is just the sense of satisfaction that I feel from having done something that feels like it's really hard, really pushing yourself, really grinding it out. And I mean, I've referenced this many times, but I did a solo elk hunt in New Mexico one time, drew a tag, and I backpack hunted for, 10 days before I arrowed this bull. But same thing. I mean, this overwhelming sense of satisfaction that I felt, for like, I did this thing, that was really hard on me physically, mentally, and just, yeah, that satisfaction is just, it's what I love.
So this is hilarious. It took me 5 years and 7 hunts to kill my first bull. And I did it in New Mexico solo, in the White Mountain Wilderness. And it was, I broke down in some tears afterwards and shit. Like it was that level of intensity for me. And it was like, yeah, so it's like, yeah, 100%, man. And it was like, people kept saying like, why don't you go do this some other way? You know what I mean? Because I kept going these weird solo hunts, and no, I don't want to shoot it with a rifle, even though I can hunt elk in the rut here at home with an over-the-counter tag. But there was like, it's not just what you do, it's how you do it. Like there's something important there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've rifle hunted, I've muzzleloader hunted, I've mostly bow hunted, and I value all of it. But when you look back on it, the ones that mean the most to me are the ones, like you're saying, like that hunt in New Mexico. And I can completely relate. I broke down, like when I arrowed that bull. I mean, I on my knees, just shedding tears, like I'd worked so hard for that. And then, I got the bull kind of taken care of. And I remember that was the first time, I think, in 10 days, I kicked my boots and my socks off, other than, I kicked my boots, my socks off. I hiked down to a creek and, washed my socks and hung them up to dry. And I sat there in the sun and ate a granola bar. And I just remember thinking that, like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is the epitome of living.
Yeah. I like to say I never feel as me as I do, and especially for me it's solo, but I never feel as me as I do when I'm solo in the mountains. I actually used to have a hard time coming home. I would go through these like bouts of depression afterwards because I'd have a really hard time switching gears. Like I love my family and I love my job and like that's all good. But like the coming out of the mountains, there was like this, what's that called when the scuba divers have to, you know what I mean? It's not depressurized, but they have to reacclimatize. And that's what it was like. And I remember my wife sat me down. She's like, I don't know what you got to do, but you got to figure this shit out. Because I watched the kid for 2 weeks while you go away and then you come home and you're still not here. And so it was like, I kind of had to do some soul searching and figure out a way to like, okay, I get it. It's intense and it's emotional and it takes you a little while to acclimatize, but you need to come home and be present. But it's like, it's that intense psychologically. You know what I mean? Like it really, I feel like everybody's talking with Charlie Brown voice. That was part of the reason I started self-filming, because everyone wanted to hear these adventures. And I'm like, I can't talk to you when I get back because the words coming out of my mouth seem meaningless considering what I just did. And I feel like I'm doing a very poor job at explaining the intensity of everything. And I'm like, maybe if I film shit, that will somehow, be a better method of communication. And the weird indirect benefit of that is that coming home and having the film to work on was my transition. Like it let me still kind of be in the mountains and it made it easier and it made it softer. And I could be happy and, I'll wake up at 5 and edit for 2 hours before work. And it would I would still feel engaged in that mountain experience and, and transition slowly back to real life.
That's interesting. Yeah, I feel very much the same. I mean, as you were talking, I can think of, it seems like for me, like I get home, and it seems like I've driven all night to get home, and I get home and, I'll have like I'll roll into the house at 6 a.m. or whatever, because I've just driven all night long. And, you say hi to the wife and kids. And for me, as you were talking, I think there's always like this pivotal moment. Like I get in the shower and it's probably like the first shower I've had in 10 days. And it feels good to be home, be in the shower. But like, I inevitably just feel like this heavy sense of like almost depression. Like it's over. Like this thing that I prepped for. I mean, I got up and ran today. I shot my bow. I haven't missed a day shooting my bow in ages, and it's like this thing that you just absolutely work for. You put so much effort and you value it so much. And then, on the back end of that, I don't know how to not feel like this sense of like, another year, I got to wait. Yep. It's hard. It sounds silly, but it is. Yeah. There's this kind of a decompression that has to happen on the back end of those. I look forward to them so much. I mean, it wouldn't be out of the range to say that's like kind of the, one of the primary driving forces in my life.
Yeah, 100%, man. For me, it was the culmination, and I didn't even really realize this, but it was like, I've had other things that I tend to get obsessive about anything that I do, but like there was jujitsu, there was CrossFit, there was tree planting and working in the bush. And it wasn't until I found like backpack hunting or backcountry hunting or whatever you want to call it, where it brought everything together. Like it had the personal challenge. It was mentally stimulating because you had to figure out like the logistics and the mapping and the navigation and the gear thing. And it was emotionally challenging. I tell people all the time, it's not your boots and your tent that are going to send you home. It's your mind, because you're going to come up with all these in the moment, wonderfully, reasonable reasons why you need to go home because of X, Y, and Z. And it's just like, that's just your mind messing with you. You do not need to go home. So there's the emotional challenge and the psychological challenge. And then there's the actual educational, like learning how to shoot your weapon and learning the animal behavior. Like it was just, and it's so primal. To me, it is like the perfect combination of everything that I find rewarding in life, all in one thing. And I've tried everything under the sun, and I can't find anything else that brings everything together like that.
Let me ask you, I'd be interested to hear, but does it take you a few days when you leave on a hunt to kind of get into that mode of being on a hunt? So for me, there's like a 2 or 3 day window where I feel almost like there's this anxiousness, because I'm so used to, doing this, looking at my computer, looking at my phone, dealing with, life at home and running a kid to a soccer practice or something. Like there's this kind of, there's also a decompression there. And I look forward to it every time I go on a hunt. By that third day, when my whole focus is just living and trying to do this one thing, which is, kill this elk with this arrow. Like, man, that's the best.
I've said it, repeat. It's day 3 for me. When I wake up on day 3, and it's even more so than just the emotional and the physical, like no matter how fit I get, those first 2 days are still a struggle. It's like when you get on the treadmill, like the first 5 minutes, or when you go for a run, that first mile, like you're forcing it before you hit that like stride.
Hello.
And I feel like that with the hunt, like for the first 2 days, I'm forcing it, and I know how to force it, and I can just have discipline and force it, but I can't lie to myself that it's not being forced. But then when I wake up on that third morning, it's like the boots feel good. The legs are broken in. I can go up steep stuff and just go all day. My mind is like quiet and clear. I'm on my phone way too much. My wife is always like flabbergasted. She's like, how do you live out there? And I'm like, I don't know how to explain this to you, but like, it doesn't even enter my mind to open it other than to look at OnX to see like where I'm going. I don't open the text app. I don't have that little dopamine hit. Like I normally reach over and touch my screen every 30 seconds just to see what's going on. But when I'm out there after that third day, like all that disappears, man. And it's just like, you're fully present. But that's funny that it's that third day, man, 100%.
Yeah, me too. And I love that feeling of like being, day 5, 6, 7, 8, and you're just like, I don't even know what day it is.
Yes.
The things are just clicking by. I haven't thought about my phone. I haven't thought about anything other than just this thing I'm trying to do. Like,
and the other thing that I find interesting is like that, if you're on a 10-day, 3 to 8 is the magic. Because by 9 or 10, if I haven't put something down, like I have a real hard time keeping the stress at bay. And then I start to like almost wreck things for myself because like I get so insanely focused on like, I can't fail that then I just go into hyperdrive and I kind of lose it a little bit again. But like that middle section where it's like, there's no pressure. We still got lots of time to make this happen, but I've like fell into the groove. It's beautiful. That's part of the reason I'm leaving on a sheep hunt in 4.5 weeks. And I told my wife, I'm like, I'm going to be gone for 15 days. And this is the longest one yet, solo the whole time, because like, I just can't handle that pressure at the end. So I'm like, if I just keep making hunts longer and longer, then I won't have to deal with that pressure to the end. Like it won't be 3 to 8. It will be like 3 to 12. That will feel good. And the pressure won't come in until that 14 and 15.
Yeah. Yeah. That expectation, right? You'll kind of line it out for you. Yeah, that'll be good.
Do you ever feel that? Because like, I know we all say we're not going to fall victim to the pressures of social media. And I'm not a big like stacking bodies guy. I'm not that type of hunter anyways, but like, especially because you're a bit of a figure and you're known Do you feel any additional pressure when you're out there? Like if I'm trail and I can't come back without something.
I would say I've gotten a lot better with it the older I've gotten. So I think there was a time period probably like in my early to mid 30s, late 30s where I did feel pressure, and it was a lot of it was just self-imposed. It wasn't necessarily, I'm not a big social media guy. Like I probably I probably post 3 or 4 times a year. I mean, I don't work at it that hard. I like social media. I love it. I mean, I consume a lot of it, but as far as like me putting out there, I don't feel like I have a lot of, quote unquote pressure. I don't put a lot of pressure on myself to post for that reason. But I think for me, it was like, I couldn't stand the thought of not feeling a tag, like I had to feel a tag. I had to feel a tag. And I would say really probably like the last, 3 or 4 years, I've felt a whole lot less of that. If I didn't feel a tag, I've felt better about just the experience and, getting to be out there. And I haven't come home, being upset or mad at myself that I didn't feel a tag. I think it's kind of, the pressure's waned as I've gotten older. Maybe that's just, sign of maturity. I don't know, or just getting old.
I can relate to that as well. And I think part of it for me was because I'm what you call the adult onset hunter. Like I didn't really, a little like the annual moose hunt was a big deal in my old man's family in Ontario. Always be Canadian Thanksgiving week. They would go away for a week. And I did 2 of those when I was younger and then kind of had a falling out with that side of the family. And then for the next, 15, almost 20 years, didn't hunt anything. And then my early 30s got super obsessed in the last 10 years. It's like everything I think about. So for a long time, I wasn't very good at it. My success just came from the fact that I didn't quit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But once I started to get a little bit more confident in my abilities and I had shot some like respectable, mature animals, I found it a little bit easier to give myself permission, because the other thing that I love about hunting is that you can do everything perfect and still fail. And most things in life are not like that. Most things in life, like our work and our family and our stuff, if you fail, like I'm not like a Jocko Willink extreme ownership, like I'm not that far, but I am like it's probably my fault. There's probably something I didn't do that if I had have done, I would be successful. And I'm okay owning that. That's how we get better. And that's so I would beat myself up. And then I got to this point where it's like, I do a lot of right stuff on most hunts. And I think sometimes it's just not going to happen. And when I gave myself that permission, that helped. I still beat the shit out of myself, but it's like a level 8 instead of a level 10. You know what I mean?
Sure. I think the bigger factor is like I don't ever want to come home and feel like I didn't give it my best. Like I didn't give it full effort. Or feel like I bailed early, because I was either, mentally or physically soft. Right. I don't like that. I don't want that to happen. I feel like if I give it my best effort, I feel like if I've gone out there and I've gave it the full hunt and all the days that I had and I worked my ass off and I still came up short, then, that I can live with.
You nailed it, man. That's the other piece of the puzzle, 100%. Because, and I only know that because I've had hunts where I gave up and I literally like had that copper acid taste in the back of my throat for an entire year. And it was like, yeah, man, you came out early for no other reason than you wanted to come out early. And it was like, I think that's a bit of that's a fork in the road for a lot of people. And that either turns you into the person who never comes out early again, or it turns you into the person who maybe doesn't do hunts like that anymore. Yeah.
You can talk yourself to, not making a stock, not moving when you know that you should, not, not staying out, coming home, you can justify that and you can talk yourself into it. And, that's the thing that stings for me. It's the fact that I gave up on myself,
Yes.
And I'm the same way. I've had hunts where I felt like I probably bailed, earlier than I should have under the, the guy said, oh, this isn't going to happen. There's not animals here.
Weather's coming in.
Weather's coming in. Yeah.
It's the responsible thing to do.
Yeah. I've done that. Yeah. And, that's the thing that stings is that, I know internally that I talk myself into that, versus just sticking it out. And maybe it wouldn't have happened anyway, but you'll never know because I came home, right?
Yeah. So maybe this is a good transition as well, because I just did this podcast about fitness in hunting because it's like one of my biggest pet peeves. Like everybody has all these complicated programs and it's like, just put on a damn backpack and walk up the hill. Like it's not rocket science. But whether it comes down to like a gear review or fitness, like being fit is not going to help you directly kill something. Having the right tent or the right pants is not going to help kill you something. But it might help you not talk yourself out of doing something that will kill something because your mind is a little bit stronger because you're a little bit less tired or you're a little bit less cold or a little bit less wet. And I think you go through this evolution as a hunter where at the beginning you think you need all the stuff and you need to do all the things because that's what's going to help you kill stuff. And then you realize, man, there was dudes in Wranglers and Mac jackets killing shit in the 70s like gangsters. You know, they had nothing. Yeah. You know, and here we are, these like pampered little, you know, anyways. Yeah. But I do think it's mindset. And if you have the luxury of having a couple extra dollars and some money to time practicing your bow and working on your fitness, I think it's that edge and mindset. And that's what I try and remind myself. Like that's the thing that's going to actually help me be more successful out there, I think.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. The people that I know that do it best are the people that don't give up. They just put time, and it is time and it's effort, and they just continue to do it. I mean, I've sat on hillsides with buddies before and looked at an animal, you know, that they spotted, and I said, you know, do you want to go for that? No, I don't think I can make it over there. You know, I can't make it over there by dark.
Right.
You know, and they've, you know, whether that's an honest assessment or, you know, mentally they've kind of talked themselves out of it based on, you know, they just don't want to suffer, right? They don't want to hike and do it. But I mean, if you're not in that mindset, you're just not going to go for it.
Yep.
You know, going back to high school sports, I mean, I had a coach in high school that, you know, for basketball, we didn't touch a basketball for 2 weeks. It was the first 2 weeks of practice, did not touch a basketball. The only thing we did was run. And I mean, he told us, you know, we're not going to be the biggest team in this league, but we will definitely be the best in shape. And, you know, the game at the end of every practice for those 2 weeks was you would lay on the locker room floor until you quit blacking out enough that you could drive home. Because, I mean, we would run. I mean, he ran us to death. But in saying that, I mean, it's those kinds of things that you carry with you. You know, that you know you can do it, right? That you can push through. You can keep going. You can make that stock, you know, and you go for it. I definitely agree with you. I mean, it's the mental side of that is the difference maker, in my opinion.
100%. So I have this belief that self-esteem is achieved by convincing or by accomplishing things that we thought we were incapable of. And normally that only happens by removing choice, because if you have a choice and you think you're incapable of it, you probably won't do it. Like if he'd allow you to choose whether or not you were going to run, you would have quit 10, 15, 30 minutes earlier, but because you're on a team and there's peer pressure and and then all of a sudden you're running further than you thought you could. And I think that's what the mountains does for people as well. Because once you get out there, you either back yourself into a corner and like, I'm going to have to do this shit. And then once you break through that ceiling a couple times, it really does open up this other part of your mind where you're like, well, if all those limitations were really just imaginary, you know, limits that I put on myself, then where are the limits? Like, why can't I just keep walking? And why can't I go on the stalk until 9 o'clock and I'll put the headlamp on and I'll get back to camp at 2 a.m.? I mean, that doesn't seem like an unreasonable idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my older brother and we hunted quite a bit together, and I remember going on growing up in Utah, about the only elk tag that you could get over the counter was a spike elk tag.
Okay.
And I remember hiking up to a knoll in the dark one day, and we were probably, 15, 20 minutes, before gray light that you could see. And these guys had rode in underneath us with horses. And, they got on the elk and they shot these two spikes, essentially kind of out from underneath us. But I mean, they were there. Right. And I remember my brother telling me, that's the last time we will ever get beat. And we would be there. No lie. I mean, we would be there sometimes an hour and a half, 2 hours before light. I mean, we would hike all night in the dark, but that's what we wanted to do to be successful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I you got to be there in the dark. I've told people that a lot. I mean, you got to get over if you're afraid of the dark, got to get over that pretty quick.
100%. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit, because we also had an unbelievable, you're a very popular guy when it comes to gear, because the amount of questions that came in was insane, and I want to protect some time to get to those out of respect for those people. But when did you realize that like gear was a thing for you? Because I know dudes who are absolute killers who like don't give a shit. And then I know other guys who like it's everything. Like, and I think you're like me, where it's not so much work as it is passion. Like you find it authentically enjoyable to like really think about what you're going to take on a hunt and look at different options and compare and analyze. And was that something that happened earlier on, or when did you first realize that like you were a gear guy?
I've always, it's interesting. Like I agree with you in the sense that like gear doesn't make the hunt, right? It's not gonna, it's gonna make you marginally more successful. But to be honest, I mean, if you've got the grit, the determination, the skills, you're gonna get it done no matter what. It could definitely make your hunt more enjoyable. You can, in my opinion, you could be more effective. But gear isn't everything. But for me, I like gadgetry. And specifically when it comes to hunting equipment. I mean, I like boots. I like tents. I like, archery. I mean, I'm a nut with archery stuff. I mean, I love bows. I love to shoot my bow. I mean, for me, an hour and a half every day to shoot my bow is like, my time. That's like, I look forward to that. Like, I can't believe, I mean, I love shooting my bow. So, all the gadgetry that goes into it, just, I don't know why I love that stuff, but I do. I would say, probably like my early 20s. I'm a researcher too. I mean, that's probably the other part of my fascination, my interest in gear is that I like research. I like looking into like the specifics. When I got into bows and archery, kind of what drew me in was the tinkering. Learning to tune my own bow, learning to build my own arrows, learning to tune it and, set it up and tie my nock in, and that whole process, how to tune it. And I think that kind of just led me into, the tools of the trade, right? So, the press, the arrow saws, and then individual arrow options and inserts and nocks and, the bowstrings and bowstring material. I mean, I can go deep down a rabbit hole into all that stuff, but, it just kind of developed. And then, like I said, going back to just detail, I seem to have the ability to kind of, remember, like I can remember things, I can, look at a tent and remember what it weighed and, set it up and, live in it for a week and kind of tell you the things I liked about it and things that I don't. Like I'm relatively detail oriented just by nature. And I think, it yields itself into hunting equipment, just of all types.
Yeah. And I think your ability to articulate and communicate as well, I think, is that final piece of like you being, there's a lot of people who are like really good at doing that stuff, but it kind of falls apart when they try and communicate it to other people at the end. And I think that's what, kind of sets some people apart. And I think, do you do these really long, I love the gear list videos because it's like everybody else is doing these 7-minute, you know what I mean? Best of 22, like garbage videos. And then we've got Trail's early season elk hunting video coming in at like 56 minutes. And I'm just like, yeah, that's what it takes to like actually talk about everything that when you're really getting into it and communicating like the depth of the decision-making process, like it takes time, man.
That's funny. We recorded that. I saw the first draft. Neville sent it over to me and he's like, man, this is like 56, 58 minutes. And I was like, dude, nobody's going to watch that. I mean, nobody's got an hour to just listen to me talk as slow as I talk anyway. Like there's no chance anybody's going to listen to this, but I hope people find some value in it. I hope there's some tidbits in there, even if they're looking for, a specific update to some piece of their equipment. I hope there's something in there to help people, but
dude, I did 2 hours on 5 backpacks and people are like, you could have gone on longer. And I was like, I told people up front, I'm like, listen, like you're get ready for the ride because you bought the ticket. Like this is not, this is not going to be short. And I do think I like the progression of like the social media and the online information stuff because I do think we're coming over that hump where like there is a big batch of individuals out there who are quite happy to turn on an hour-long YouTube video about some tent or backpack or pair of boots where some dude is just going to go insane in depth. And I think there's room for that in the marketplace. Not everybody wants it. And I think the little quick snappy stuff is good too, but there's room for the more in-depth stuff. And it's encouraging to me because that's the stuff I get passionate about.
Me too. I mean, I watched your videos. I listened to the whole thing, you know what I mean? And I loved it. I thought it was awesome. I've talked to everybody that I work with about it. I value it for sure. So, there's certainly got to be some other, nerds out there like me, right. That value the long form, detailed type of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I definitely appreciate it. I love it.
Yeah, it was fun. It's the most positive thing I've ever done just for the amount of feedback. And I think, and you know what this is like, because I'm sure you get more questions than I do. Dudes are looking for some confidence. Like, and especially in this day and age where you don't, like I live in Canada, nobody gets to try any of this shit on, so it's like, there's a lot of money on the line. And when you go to a lot of these companies' websites, they've got a 3-minute video and a couple marketing photos. And it's like, I don't know, you just look like that guy who looks like that guy. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I think when you can give some people some confidence about what might be the best decision, I think people are just so grateful for that. And especially when it comes from like, and that's where I think GoHunt is at a very unique place. Like I do see, it's another reason why I like the guys at the Bow Rack and Inside Out Precision so much. Like I think when you work for a retailer or a distributor and you don't have to be brand loyal, you don't have to be rude, and you don't have to hold anybody's boots to the fire, but you can just honestly express the pros and cons of different gear. Like there's such a need because like influencers get paid by brand deals. So like a lot of these guys that we follow, I don't think their opinions are as valuable as some people would make them out to be simply because there's some financial, which I don't begrudge anybody, you know what I mean? But I do think people like you and the GoHunt team, and I think GoHunt has done a phenomenal, like I ended up watching your pack loading video for the Stone Glacier. Like it's kind of shocking to me that like some of the pack videos to understand the intricacies of the packs that GoHunt puts out are like better than the actual. And I think that's also because we're end users. Like I think sometimes the manufacturers gets lost in the forest for the trees and they don't understand the little weird stuff that's important to the end user. Whereas like guys who are using it on a regular basis and still have a lot of questions might be a little bit more suited to answer those questions or even to realize that those are questions that need to be addressed.
Yeah. Until you've loaded a bag of loose meat or a hindquarter into some of those frames, you don't really know that maybe what the questions that people are even looking for.
Totally.
So yeah, and we try to carry my approach, at least anyway, like to the gear shop. I mean, we don't carry Kifaru, right? If you tested Kifaru packs, I know that Kifaru makes a phenomenal pack. I've owned Kifaru packs,
Yep.
So we understandably there are products that we don't carry that we probably don't speak to, obviously because we don't carry them, right? Sure. So it would be hard for me to speak to those, but I mean, we try to. I mean, I try to give people, the most honest assessment of a piece of equipment as I can. And I appreciate you saying that we do a good job because we certainly try to. I mean, I try to be as authentic, give people my authentic answer and opinion as I can. Yeah, it's important to me that I do.
Yeah, man, it comes across like you have integrity. And I think too, man, I just want to give some more like the evolution of GoHunt over the last 5 years has been wild to watch, man. Starting out as this draw odds app, kind of like single revenue source, like 1D kind of company into like what it has become now, and like in a pretty authentic, like there's a lot of really good companies like in the hunting space. Like that's one of the things I'm learning, like doing more interviews and having people from companies like reach out and just be like interested to chat. And like it's a good space to be in. I think there's other retail, like my day job, I've got a lot of clients in like more big corporate organizations, and it's like not as cool. You know what I mean? Like they're not people that I would like want to spend my free time with on most occasions.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's been a ride. I mean, it's been pretty wild to see what is developed at GoHunt and kind of, Lorenzo and Chris's vision for the company and the development of, technology and, moving into maps. It's been really super cool to see kind of that whole evolution. And then, the gear shop, that's kind of like really where I came into play, I guess. When they hired me, I still do a lot of research writing, so the application strategy articles. But then, when they opened the gear shop, I did a lot of the gear selection, initially, and I still do a lot of, talking with the guys that are buyers. But just to see that evolution of the shop has been really cool, and how the whole system works together. It's like this, nice ecosystem. You get, research rods, the filtering, and, now you've got maps kind of help you in the field. You've got the gear with the point system. It's been this cool evolution that's kind of, we did one thing really well, and now I think we do a lot of things really well. We're kind of, bringing that 360 for the hunter.
Oh, it's funny. Musashi, that guy, the Book of the Five Rings, he's like, what's he say? Learn one way broadly and you will understand all things. And I think that's a good application of that. Like get really, really good at one thing, and then you just apply the same strategy to different things.
Yeah.
Okay, let's kick it over into some questions, because I'm burning your time here, and we got some good ones that I want to get into.
Cool. I got all kinds of time. My kids are out of town to the night, so I'm just chilling at home.
Okay, awesome. Then the pressure is off. Okay, besides good glass, what piece of gear can elevate your hunt the most?
I would say, to go along with that, I mean, if you've got good glass, a good tripod.
Yeah.
My brother was the first one that put me onto glassing off of a tripod. And I remember when he told me, he's like, yeah, I bought this tripod and then this, binocular attachment for it that goes with, my binoculars and the tripod. And it's incredible the things that you're going to see. And I remember thinking, yeah, I don't know, man, I don't see that being a difference maker. I see pretty good, sitting on my knees and glassing off my knees, but probably 20 minutes behind his tripod with a pair of binoculars, I was just blown away. What a difference it made. So I would say, buy the best glass that you can, but, right behind that, I would buy, the best possible tripod that you can afford, because it's definitely going to make a difference.
Who do you like for tripods?
That's an interesting question. So, we carry Cirre, which has been a good tripod. I've had some issues with the legs. I lost like the bottom part of the leg that came out on a hunt last year. I like my favorite is Faisal, which we don't carry. And so I don't know if you're familiar with Faisal.
No.
Yeah. So Faisal, it's Feisol. I've had a set of those Faisal carbon legs for a long time. The durability has been phenomenal. I like the way the angle changes on those. Probably right there with them, I would say Gitzo.
Yeah.
Gitzo makes a phenomenal set of legs. We do carry those, but Faisal, Gitzo, Cirre makes a good set of legs. But there's some good options out there.
Cirre sent me the 2204. Which I'm going to check out. And I'm going to actually do a head-to-head between that and the Slick CF 734, because they're pretty, they're both like $250 tripods, and they're both 4-leg models. And I've had some issues with the Slick spin out. Like that seems to be the go-to for everybody, is the Slick CF models. And I'm not a big fan of those spinning attachments for the legs. I've had them come apart on me a couple times. So when I saw the Cirre with the flip out ones, I was like, and the fact that the screw is there, so you can at least you can do a little bit of field maintenance on it if you had to. I was like, I think I like this one. I tend to be an outdoorsman's guy. That's what I've run for the last 5 years, and I really like outdoorsman's. I find the aluminum maybe is just in my head, but it's like a little bit less shaky. And I just tend to take a shorter tripod to compensate for the weight. But, I'm interested to look at that C-Rate tripod, because their VA5 head is kind of like an industry standard head now. So it's interesting to see. And I think you can get the combo for like $350, that tripod and fluid head, which like If you're in like the middle budget of the road, like that's a phenomenal combo. Like you're off to the races for a really lightweight package.
Yeah, I mean, hands down. Yeah, there's a combo. It's the VA5 head. It comes with a set of Surae carbon fiber legs. I think it's $299. We've got in the shop, and hands down, that's the best bargain for a good good setup. If you were to buy that head on its own, I think it's $165. So, for an extra minimal cost, you get a set of legs with it. So yeah, I would say that's, as far as I know of, that's probably the best bargain out there for a good set.
Best underwear for hunting in August, hot weather.
So we carry sacks. I don't know if you've ever tried those.
I have.
So they make a nice product, and kind of their whole shtick is, essentially it's got this ballpark pouch, kind of keeps the furniture away from the walls, which is the way they pitch it, which can be great for August when you've got a lot of, sweat and you're, potential chafing. A set that I really like is the Echo. So it's made by Outdoor Research. So those are super, super lightweight and breathe really, really well. And that's kind of been my favorite. I would say, early season hunts, I've kind of gravitated towards those.
I love OR gear. I'm going to throw a name on the list, and it's Lululemon. Their air mesh boxers, dude, are my go-to. I love, and they're actually one of my clients. So I've had some behind to look at like their fabric development, and they do some really impressive stuff with fabrics. I've been I like their underwear a lot.
Yeah, I haven't tried those, but I would say check out these Echoes from Outdoor Research if you're looking for a really lightweight, super breathable set of underwear for early season.
I like it. Okay, rookie hunter, he's starting from scratch. What are the areas where you would spend a little more, and what are the areas where you would spend a little less? Cut some corners on.
Yeah, I would spend money on sleeping bags, sleep system. I think so. Let me take, for example, let me see if I can attack it this way. So if you're looking for a sleep system, I think you can save some money on your pad. I don't know that you need to buy a $300 Thermarest pad, although they make a really nice pad. I think you could get by, for a few years with something like, a Climate. And sleep relatively comfortably, right? So I think you could shave some corners on a pad, and they still make an ultralight pad, with a decent R value that you can get for, $110 or, $90 versus 200, right? So I think that's an area you could shave some money. I like to spend money in sleeping bags. I like products that you get longevity out of. So I feel like if I buy a, Western Mountaineering sleeping bag, I might pay, $550, $575 for it, but I'm going to have that thing for 30 years. So, and I think, if you don't get sleep at night, you definitely don't feel like hunting if you're cold. So I spend some money in a good sleeping bag. A pack, I think, is a good investment. There's nothing worse than having a pack fall apart on you, or, carrying around a bunch of extra weight in a pack that you don't need. So I think a pack is a good investment. I think you can shave some money on, clothing items, to be honest.
Yeah.
It makes sense if you've got the money to put into like lightweight, breathable, functional layers. I think that's awesome. But, you can get by with, like you said, the first bull I ever killed, I killed in a pair of Wranglers. I was in, Wrangler camouflage cotton jeans. I probably suffered a little bit more, but it worked, right?
I would say go look at non-hunting brands too, because like we've got MEC up here, you've got REI, they have these blowout sales, and like base layers are base layers, man. And just get a kind of dark, don't walk around in fluoro orange, but like if you're just in earth tones, like you can get $20 base layer shirts and grid fleeces for like literally like they go on sale for $20-$30 all the time. And those guys, those mountaineering guys are who we're trying to catch up to in the hunting space. So I think clothing is a really good example of where you could drop $3,000-$4,000 on like a whole Sitka setup, where you could probably do the same thing for $500-$600 in mountaineering brands and get the same technical quality. It's just, you're not going to be as stylish as the rest of the cool kids.
Sure. Yeah. And this one might be, this might be kind of an interesting take. I personally think, but I would even say, a weapon, to be honest. I think it's more important to be proficient with the weapon that you have than it is to buy the best of the best. So
Right.
what I'm saying is if you're going to buy a $1,200 bow and you're going to shoot it, a week or two or every few days, and you just kind of take it half-assed, I think you'd be better off to, if save some money, but practice with it every day and know the inside out, just absolutely everything about that thing and be proficient with it. Even a rifle, there's some really nice rifles that are just stock rifles, with a decent scope.
Yep.
But if you know that gun, you put time behind it, I think you can be extremely proficient with, a rifle that's not $5,000. So,
yeah, I'm a big fan, for example, the Tikka T3X, and I did splurge on a fancy rifle this year because I figured, why not? I'm at a place in my life where I can afford it. But I literally just went to the range, and except for a few minor differences, the $5,000 Fierce and the $1,000 Tikka are doing the exact same thing at 400 yards, man. Like there is little to no difference.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think of a bow, for example. If you don't have the money to put into a top tier bow, which they're great, don't get me wrong, they're awesome. I mean, they're quiet, they're faster, they do have the potential to be a little bit more accurate. But in my opinion, like the bigger effort that I would push people to is like, learning to shoot the thing,
right.
Figure out a shot process, figure out how to execute a shot, figure out how to work under pressure so that when you actually get that opportunity on an animal that it's automatic or as automatic as you can make it.
Yeah. Best value cold weather sleeping bag under $350 American.
Yeah, I would say right around that $350, $400 mark. I would look at Marmot. Like Marmot right now, we have 4th of July sale going on, and I talked to a guy today earlier that was looking for a 0 degree bag, and I looked at the lithium. So the lithium's a 0 degree Marmot bag, 800 downfill. The helium, you can find those on sale for probably $400, maybe $450. This is one area I would say, if you got to save $50 to make up the difference, it's worth it. Right. Do it. Yep. But Marmot makes phenomenal bags. They make good down, and anytime a company makes a product and it's been in their lineup for 20 years, there's probably a reason why. So like one of my first down bags that was a good down bag was a Marmot helium. I still have that thing. My kid uses it all the time. He's 17, right? We go hunting together. He still uses that bag. So I would say, look at Marmot. Big Agnes has got some bags, but I would say look at that Marmot line. So Marmot lithium, Marmot helium.
Okay. What's your go-to shelter for Western big game right now?
Yeah, it's it depends on the species and kind of the hunt and the time of year.
Sure.
So for me, for example, if I'm hunting archery elk, I like to keep. I've talked about it a lot, but I like a real mobile camp. I like to live off my back. I hate you for
this, by the way.
Yeah.
Quick tangent. So because I follow trail and I want to be like trail, I go to do my New Mexico elk hunt and I buy the Outdoor Research. It had just come out. Was it like the Interstellar or the right?
Interstellar.
And so I buy this thing. I'm a big dude. At the time I was like 6'1", 240. And I'm the first 2 nights are great. Like I got it wide open, the stars, and I'm doing the same thing you did. I would like leave my pad in there in the whole 9 yards and then just open the pad up in the morning and roll the whole thing up and stuff it in my backpack. And I'm hunting elk. And then I lay it at night. I flip it out, blow up the pad, crawl in. And I'm like, this is the best thing ever. And then the third night, it rains like a monsoon. And it is literally like the most claustrophobic event of my life because I'm so big and the pad is big and this like rubberized material is like laying on my face and I can feel the rain, but I can't open the zipper. And I was just like, that day I had to hike out and get more food anyways. And I grabbed my Kafaru Mega Tarp because I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I need some, it was a little too mobile, a little too lightweight.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So I will say I pair mine with a tarp. So
Yeah.
I never leave without a tarp.
I clearly missed that part of the memo.
I would say, most of the time, if it's not raining, if it doesn't look like it's going to rain, it's just head out, stars, and I'm sleeping in a bivvy. I do pack a tarp, and like I said, I normally only pitch that if it looks like I'm going to need it. So I'll pitch it in like a closed A frame, and slide underneath that with my bivvy. So I do like bivvy hunting, with a tarp for archery elk hunting. It's my preferred method just because I can be so mobile. I've got on elk before, in the morning and ended up 4 or 5 miles from where I started on those in the morning. And if I had to hike back and forth to camp every day, it's just not me. I don't like it. I would just assume stay with them. So, if I move into early season mule deer, if I was hunting high country mule deer, for example, and I'm on, like an exposed ridge or up, high in elevation, I like, a double wall tent just for the, the added protection. So something like or even like a Hilleberg Enon, which is one of my very favorites. It's a single person tent with a hoop, lightweight, tons of weather protection. If you move into late season, you can kind of get into a point where, maybe a stove is nice to work in conjunction with your, a teepee style tent. So, Seek Outside Red Cliff, I really like that tent. A Cimarron is a great option. The Silex is a great option for Seek Outside if you want to use a stove for a one-man option. So it really depends on, depends on the hunt, depends on the species.
Yeah, I would concur on all those. I actually just bought the 12-man teepee with a stove from Seek Outside for an elk hunt I'm doing with my old man and my brother this year. It's going to be like a little more old school, end of a logging road, set up a camp, day hunt type situation, like get some cots and like big fire in that big stove every night. I'm super excited for that thing, man. I think that's going to be a blast. Yeah. And the perfect shelter, like with the weight of that thing compared to space and what you'd end up spending on a wall tent, I was like, this is just a no-brainer.
Yeah, I just wrote an article. We should have it on our website here here pretty quick, but basically comparing floorless shelters with, double wall traditional style tent and when you might use one over the other. So, your listeners might look for that, but I think there's a time and a place, and it sucks, but you almost do have to, have multiple options.
100%, man.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, I'm like, your life is going to get a lot easier when you stop looking for the Swiss Army knife for everything you do in hunting, because it doesn't exist. And I remember a negotiations professor telling me once, agreeing to compromise is just both parties agreeing to lose. And I do think when you try and get the thing that does everything, it does nothing particularly well. You're better off to listen, if there's one hunt of the year that is the most important thing in the world, then build your kit around that. And as you get more money, start branching out into other things. But yeah, people want that perfect jack of all trades. And the bottom line is it just doesn't exist.
Yeah. I would say if you were going to take that approach, buy a Hilleberg. Yeah. Spend the money. You might pack a little extra weight. You might be, but it'll cover. It'll cover your ass for 90% of what you're doing.
Yep. Do you have any experience with the Kawa Genesis binos?
I don't.
I've never used Kawa either.
I haven't.
Okay.
Nope.
Your favorite topic. Your opinion on bow choice right now.
I like a Matthews. I've been a Matthews guy for a long time. Good company, good group of dudes. I like the innovation and kind of the direction they drive the industry. And so I like that V3X 33.
Yep.
In saying that, there's a lot of nice bows. I've owned Hoyts, I've owned Elites, PSEs. I don't know that there's a bad bow on the market. I would tell people, visit a pro shop, a good pro shop that has a good selection, shoot as many that kind of fit, your specs. And I would say that's probably the more important thing. I'm 6'2", 30-inch draw. So, a 29-inch bow just doesn't work for me. just doesn't hold, you know.
Yep.
I don't like it. I don't like the string angle. So I would say kind of play with your specs and find a geometry of a bow that works for you. So the axle to axle kind of, you know, suits your draw length and your draw weight. And then, yeah, shoot them. And then, you know, ultimately it's going to be a kind of a subjective decision based on what you like best. But for me, I like Matthews.
Love it. I finally this year, and I drove all the way to the bow rack just because I wanted to do a podcast with Kellen, and I thought it would be a cool little adventure to go do. Our bow shops are garbage in Canada, primarily because we don't incentivize bow hunting. Everything is rifle up here. So we just don't have the same bow hunting culture. So the market doesn't support it. I don't even really begrudge anybody. But even the couple bow shops in Vancouver are very target centric or Olympic centric. And so I was literally, I'm going to have to drive 6 or 7 hours. I might as well go to the bow rack. And it was like, that is the only way I will ever buy a bow again. Like they literally found out like how tall I was, what my draw length was, what I'd liked in the past. And I showed up and there's like 5, 6 bows and the range. And they're just like, we'll talk to you in a while. Like nobody pressured me. Nobody said anything. I went in there with my cup of coffee and I'm just like, and it was funny because I wanted to buy the Matthews. Like I was going down there thinking I'm coming home with the V3X. And I came home with the RX-7. It just fit. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, every time I drew back and just dipped my head, the peep was right there. The anchor was right there. The string was touching. Like, it just felt perfect. And there's no way I would have ever known that. And especially, this goes back to the backpack review. I think you have to do these things comparatively. I think you need to feel the different models in relation to each other. And that kind of highlights things that I don't think you get from just looking at one thing at a time. And I think bows are hyper personal in that regard.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, you know, the RX-7 is the best bow that they've made in a while. I think it's a great bow, great option.
It's beautiful too, man. Like every time I look at it in my shop, I'm just like, oh my God, like I just want to go shoot this thing.
And then just one more thing. I would say, you make a good point right there at the end. You know, pick a bow that you like shooting. That's fun.
Yeah. Get excited about it.
Yeah. Shoot a bow that you're excited about. You're going to shoot it better. You know, you're going to be more into it. Like, you know, even down to the way the thing looks.
Yep.
You know, if you like the way the bow looks, you feel, you know, good about it. It's fun to shoot. You know, maybe that's probably the bow for you.
It was funny. Somebody asked me on one of my YouTube videos why I bought the Fierce rifle that I did. And I was like, oh, I got to think about this. And it was like, and I typed back because it made me excited. Like I looked at the other bows in the same price category and I was just like, I don't know. Like my wife's trying to buy a car right now and she's looking around and she's like, nothing is grabbing me, you know, but that's what I thought. I looked at that rifle and I'm like, I want to kill something with that. Like this I want this in my hands. Like I like looking at it and seeing it on the wall and like, it's just cool. Like I get excited thinking about heading out into the mountains with it.
Sure. Yeah. I love it.
Have you had a chance to run the Terminus yet? Because I heard through the grapevine that you are going to be running that this year.
I have, yeah. I got one. I'm trying to think when they were released, but I've probably had it for 3 or 4 months at this point.
Okay.
So I've been using it. I mean, it's essentially built on their same frame as their Crux, right? So it's the hollow carbon fiber stays, so the straight stays, same X fashion with the two horizontal, external not external, they're internal, but I've played with it. I mean, the material is what really drew me to it, right? And then the weight. Yeah. So, it's crazy. Talking to those, I mean, less than 4 pounds for a 7,000 cubic inch bag is pretty incredible. The hip belt's the same. But I really what drew me towards that is the material, the weight, and the fact that it's waterproof, right? So I have that and the Seek Outside Goshawk 6300 on the way, and I'm going to do a head-to-head because to me, those two bags are in a category independent to themselves. Like you can throw a couple external pockets on the Goshawk and get it up to 7,000, and you're still in that kind of 4 pound-ish range, which is 50%, 35% less than any of the other big bags, which are all clocking in between 6 and 7 pounds. And I like, there's compromises you're going to have to make. You don't
there's no free 2 pounds just floating around in the universe that you get rid of. But I'm super interested to run these things. So you like it enough that you're gonna run it on some hunts. You think it'll hold up?
I am, yeah. I mean, it feels, if you're familiar with the Stone Glacier pack, which, I've used Stone Glacier packs. I think I bought my first, X-Curve frame pack at the Western Hunting Expo in like 2016 or 17, right? So I've been using that same backpack for a lot of years. So if you're familiar with kind of the fit and the feel of a Stone Glacier pack, and it works for your body and, your kind of your form, and you like it, I think you'll like that pack. Yeah, right. It feels very similar. And then, for me, it like, in talking to Andrew and the guys at Stone Glacier, they're like, this is a sheep hunter's, this is a goat hunter's backpack, where you're boning on an animal and you're really covering a lot of ground. And, they're saying this isn't an elk hunter's backpack. And I can see why it is. It's an internal frame pack. It doesn't have a load shelf built in between the frame and the bag. And, you're not going to fit an elk quarter there in between the two. But like for me, I'm kind of at a point like where, if I can shave a pound and a half,
it's a big deal,
over 9 or 10 days. And if I'm going to end up making, multiple trips, hauling meat, or, I'm trying to get a packer potentially in New Mexico to help me out with horses, why not shave that pound and a half? Yeah. Why not? I mean, I might as well. I mean, if it's going to carry as well, and if it's going to, be waterproof, why not?
Yeah. I'm with you, man. I'm super excited. I'm still up in the air what I'm going to run for my sheep hunt, but I think the Terminus might have shipped today. So if it did, there's a chance I'll get to run it. So we'll see.
Yeah. And you're familiar with their packs. I mean, you did the backpack.
They're great, man. Yeah. And I still want to run. I don't think, I wasn't super stoked with the final feel at 120 pounds. But like, let's be honest, man, 120 pounds sucks no matter how you put it on your back. But I also feel like I want to rework that pack a couple times. I think I can get it sitting a little bit nicer. I think some packs fit easy and some packs you got to work a little bit. It doesn't mean the potential's not there. My Kafaru was like that, man. It took me forever to get that thing to fit right. But once it fit right, it was like a glove. Like I could put a tank in that thing and I felt ready to go to war.
Sure.
But it took a lot. It took a lot of effort to get it that way. And that was back, I had the original tactical frame and you kind of had to like disassemble the whole thing just to like move a shoulder strap. Like it was unbelievable how technical it was. And the new duplex light frames are very, 30 seconds and you're moving shoulder straps around. But yeah, they're really nice bags.
Yeah. 120 pounds is a lot. When I listened to your review, I thought it was, it's interesting. It's what do you buy a backpack for? Do you buy it for that, accentuating circumstance where you are packing 120 pounds, or do you buy it for, the 95% of the time when you're carrying 55 or 60? And I guess it's a judgment call that everybody has to make. I mean, if the pack doesn't rip, it doesn't tear, the frame doesn't break with 120 pounds in it, like I call that a win, Yeah. And if it's comfortable with 50 and it's more comfortable than, potentially another option, then I'm going that route, Yeah.
I think it's a valid point, man. And the one weakness I thought is I equally weighted all of the categories. And I think I'm kind of working on this framework for backpack reviews that I can use, because then it will also give me the ability to compare the scores over time with a bunch of different packs. And what I want to do is spend some more time weighting the individual categories. Because, for example, the number of colors available is not as important as how it operates with 80 pounds. And I would argue that of the three weights, the 40, the 80, and 120, I think I might have inappropriately psychologically weighted the 120 higher, when in reality, I think 80 is probably closest to what should matter most, because it's like a slightly overloaded normal trip for most people. Like most people are going to go out with 65 or 70. I do some filming. I normally end up around 80. And yeah, you're right, man. Like 85% of the time, it's going to be that or less, because I start eating my food as soon as I go. So my pack is actually getting lighter the longer the trip goes on, until that last little stretch when I might need to come out heavy. And I think that's a valid I think I oversimplified that a little bit and just kind of lent on that. How is it going to handle 120? It's so hard.
Yeah.
Like there's so many different
That's a
characteristics
hard
to
one.
look at, and it's hyper personal. Like let's look at arrows. Like I know you're a lighter arrow guy. I'm a heavier arrow guy. Like the everybody's got their kind of own opinion. And I think too, like what has worked for you in the past and makes you feel confident, I think can't be undersold. Like, I've done things in archery that I know probably aren't the best thing, but I'm like, I know this arrow goes where I want it to go every single time. And I'm super confident in my setup. So I'm just going to leave this shit alone because then when I'm under pressure, I feel confident that it's going to do what it's supposed to do. And I think that's really important too. And sometimes that may even outweigh something that could be technically superior.
Agreed. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. For sure.
Do you prefer, somebody wants to know why you personally prefer the Noctivid over the Victories or the NL Pures?
Yeah. I'm like you in that originally I went into a shop to buy a pair of Swarovski ELs. So back, this would have been like 2001 or 2, right? Or 3, maybe. It was somewhere in the early 2000s. I've told this story before, but I convinced my wife to let me spend our entire tax return on a set of binos.
Yes.
And I went in to buy a pair of Swarovski, and I went out back. I put a set of Leicas, a pair of Leica Ultravids, and a pair of Swaros, side by side on a tripod. And I spent probably 2 hours, looking through them, and then, right before dark. And for me, in my eyes, the Leica was better.
Yeah.
I just liked it better. It just worked better for me. And so, since then I've been a Leica guy. I look through the two of them and things pop a little bit better for me through a Leica than they do a Swaro. And that's nothing, I'm not throwing any shade towards Swaro because my spotting scope's a Swaro. Swaro makes a phenomenal product. It's just, for me, my eyes. Yeah. Personally, it's just Leica works for me.
100%. That's how I felt about my Zeiss Victories until I switched over to the NL. At that point, because they had I can basically handhold a pair of 12s because the field of view, and that was like, now I don't got to carry 10 and 15. So like then the argument kind of went the other way for me. But even still, for like the color profile and the clarity and the way they zoom and the ergonomics, those Zeiss Victories for me are the best 10x42s I've ever owned. I love those things, man.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. The field of view on the Pures is like the one thing that could potentially tip me over.
It's pretty crazy, dude.
Yeah.
It's pretty, I don't know how they're doing what they're doing, but I was like, and then when you think about the physics of it, it's just like, and for a thing like a sheep hunt, a pair of 12s that you can handhold with your spotter, like it's just a game changer, man. Like that extra 2 power, it makes a big deal, and yeah. So I like right now, my go-to binos are the 12 power NL Pures. But also, are they $1,000 better than the 10x40? No, you know what I mean? Like, not really. So these are like, you're paying a lot more money for like a very marginal improvement. And if you're lucky enough to be at a spot in life where you've worked your ass off and you have a bit of cash, I say have at her. But if you're not, like, it was funny. Do you know I just won a Vortex Razor spotting scope? I swear to God, I bought a pair of sheep feet and I won an 85 millimeter Vortex Razor spotting scope. Like, I freaked out. And instantly I thought to myself, I'm like, oh, there's the YouTube video. We're going to take my Zeiss 95 millimeter and we're going to put it next to the Vortex Razor 85. And I bet you I'm going to have a hard time justifying, like, it's like $2,000 to $6,000. Like, these are completely different pieces of equipment. And I bet you that Vortex is close to 85%. Like, it's going to, I hated the 65 mil razor. I ended up using at a time, I had 12x50 razors and a 65 millimeter Vortex Razor spotter. And I would continually put the spotter down to just look through my 12 powers. Because anytime I tried to zoom in at 65, zero clarity. And I'm like, ugh, this is just, I'd rather look through a clear 12 power than a fuzzy 20 power. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I'm interested to see the 85 because I think that larger objective lens, a lot more light gathering capability. And I think the lower end optics manufacturers tend to do better with larger optics, like the 18 power vortexes and the 18 power Mavens. Like, it's hard to look through a pair of 18 powers and not be like, everything looks pretty nice on the other end. And most of the big guys don't even make big binos. Like even the Swaro 15 powers are only their SLC line. They don't even make an EL or an NL line over. Anyways, I went on a big rant there, but yeah, there's optics is a rabbit hole.
All valid. Yeah, all valid. And I agree. I mean, people always say, well, is it worth that extra, money? Well, it really it's such a personal value judgment. What is it worth to you? I mean, I don't know. That's a hard decision for me to make for somebody else. I don't know what you put your value in. For me, is it worth it? Absolutely. I mean, it's what I value. It's what I do. It's what I want to do. So, for me, it's worth it. So a high-end optics,
I've never really articulated it before, but your argument over like the length of relationship with the product really hits home for me. Like I had no problem buying that Zeiss Harpia because I literally said, I'm like, that's the last spotting scope I'm ever going to buy for the rest of my life. As long as I don't drive over this thing, there is literally nothing that will happen to this spotting scope that will require me, unless it's like a personal preference and I decide to sell this one. But even then you'll get 80 to 90% of your money back because it's such high-end gear. But I'm realizing now the stuff that I know that's going to last 10, 15, 20 years, I have a lot less of an issue dropping that big dollar on because it's such a long-term purchase.
My 17-year-old uses my Ultravit HDs that I bought. So, I mean,
I love it.
They last forever.
Oh, this is kind of funny. I didn't even see that this was the next question. Do you ever find a 65 millimeter spotter to be underwhelming and wish you had brought an 85 instead?
Yeah. This is a good question. So I own a 65 millimeter. It's the only scope that I own.
Yep.
I would like others. if money were no object, I would definitely own, the bigger spotters, the 85s and, even maybe the 115 or something from Swaro, but
that's crazy.
Yeah. So for a do-all, spotting scope for the style of hunting that I do, a 65 millimeter is kind of it because I get the 20 to 60 zoom and,
yep.
I get, the 65 millimeter objectives and it's packable, right? So it's a little bit lighter weight, fits in my backpack 100%. Easier. So the type of hunting I do, it makes sense. But, if I'm day hunting, if I'm, front country hunting, if I'm hunting big, open, expansive country, a bigger objective would definitely be beneficial. So, it depends on the type of hunting you're doing. And then, ultimately the kind of money you've got to spend, if you can have multiple, I'd say go for it. But if I was just buying one, I'd still just buy the 65.
This is my only reservation about the Harpia. I would have liked the modularity of the new X kind of ATX and ASX system from Swaro because you're paying half each for the ocular and the objective. And for an extra $2,000, you can have both. Because the other thing that comes into play for me is animal. If I'm mule deer hunting or elk hunting, I just want to make sure there's a decent enough rack that it's like worth going over that next hill. On things like a sheep hunt, where there's like really fine lines and legality issues, it's like, yeah, it's 2 more pounds and I don't care. Because if it's going to give me 1% more confidence that like I'm okay to shoot that sheep, I'm spending the money. But that to me is like a 1% conversation because most people don't get a chance to hunt sheep. And somebody just hit me up the other day asking about an elk and a muley hunt. And I'm like 65 all day, man, because you're going to get the information that you need in order to decide whether you take that next action, And I think that's part of the puzzle for me as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's great to have both if you can afford it, but if not, I would always go 65.
Okay, good to know. Okay, last one. Your favorite early season hunting pant?
Yeah, so I've got a couple. Kind of my very favorite has always been the Sitka Scent Pant.
Yeah.
It's super, super stretchy, super breathable. You can use knee pads in it, which I love knee pads in an early season.
Same.
Any pant really, especially if I'm bow hunting, because there's so many times
Yep.
drop to your knees to, wait for a bull to come in, and that can be excruciating if you don't have knee pads, or even just bend it down to tie your shoe in the morning, right? It comes in handy. So
Yep.
I love the Sitka scent pant, but a new one I've been wearing, I was fortunate enough to get a pair last year before they came out, was this Fjällräven Cab Agile pant. And it's kind of a stretchy, breathable nylon, and then it's got their G1000 material for like a couple of front pockets that are like cargo pockets on the thigh. And then also the knee is reinforced with that G1000. But those pants I've really, really liked. And I would say, here's the thing with pants for me is the fit is everything.
Right.
Like the thing has to fit good. Like Stone Glacier makes a really nice pant. So the Stone Glacier de Havilland light pant, right, that they came out with last year. I like the material. There's a lot of, cool things about that pant, the way the pockets are configured. I like the belt system with the Velcro and how you can kind of cinch that up and get a nice fit for you. But I don't really love the, kind of like from the knee down. It's a little bit baggy for me. Right. And, in talking to those guys, I think they designed that so that, if you're sitting up, you're sitting down glassing and your pant legs pull up, when you stand up to, take off, that pant leg's big enough that it drops over your boot. Logically, I can get to that. I can understand it. But for me, it's too baggy. Like it kind of swishes around a little bit. And, those guys love it. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I still like that pant, but for me, it's a little bit too baggy from the knee down. But, pants are all about, I like the way they fit. And if I like a pant, it's typically because of the way it fits. So
I agree 100%. 100%, man. I'm going to run the Ascents for the first year this year on my sheep hunt. And as soon as I put them on, I was like, holy shit, where have these pants been? I've been running the mountain pant, some other pants, but I was like, I put those Ascents on. I'm like, these are the pant, man. Like they're glued. They're stretchy. They fit my legs. There's no extra material, but I also don't feel constricted. Like Timberlines, I can't. I hate the Timberline. I work out, so I've got like thighs, and it's like the ass is tight and the hips are loose. And I'm like, I don't even know who fits into this pant. Like, again, technically speaking, for a late season pant, probably one of the best pants on the market, but I literally can't even wear them around the house for an hour. They infuriate me just to put them on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they're a little much for me as well. It's interesting the way the fit profile between those and some of the other fits in their lineup. I like the Apex pant. I don't know if you've ever tried it.
Same, love the Apex pant. Not a big fan of the hoodie. Too. I found it was too big and baggy in that big old front pocket. I was like, I feel like I'm a raver wearing some oversized hoodie. I don't even know who this was built. I feel like that purple guy from the Ronald McDonald. But the pants, I love the pants. Like they're my go-to bow hunting pant, 100%.
Yeah, I love that Apex pant. I'm like you. I didn't like the hoodie, but I love the pant.
Yeah.
All
right, man. Thank you so much, dude. I was really looking forward to this one. I've been super busy, but I was like, this was like my little star at the end of the day. I'm like, this is going to be awesome to sit down and trail and just nerd out. So thank you so much for taking the time, brother.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate you having me on. It's like I said, I've been following along with your backpack reviews, and I love the level of detail and thought that you put into it, and the scoring system. And it's good to hear. I love people that put that much effort and work. You really did. You did something that was above and beyond, which I appreciated. So I was pumped to talk to you too. And
thanks,
I'm a fan of what you're doing. I would encourage you to, if you could do more of those types of things, I'd say stick with it because they're awesome.
Well, little teaser up next. So far, 4 of them are here, and there's 5 more to come. Is 2-person 3-season shelters, and I actually have a wind turbine rented. And nice. We're going to set up gale force winds. We're going to beat the shit out of some stuff. And same deal, man. We're going hardcore, super nerdy, and we're going to take a shitload of tents and beat the hell out of them and kind of see which one comes out on top, which I'm hoping to release before my sheep hunt. I got a lot of kind of things in the fire right now, but I'm pretty motivated. Cool. So
Very cool. Well, I look forward to it.
Awesome, man. Thanks again. In the show notes for everybody, I'll link to all trail stuff, some articles, GoHunt, the whole 9 yards. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe. Greatly appreciate it. And until next time, thanks for tuning in. All right, Trail. Have a good night, brother.
Thanks, you too.